start off in Washington, D.C., where a man was just arrested today in the FBI's nearly 5-year investigation into pipe bombs placed outside the headquarters of the Republican and Democratic National Parties in Washington on the eve of the January 6, 2021 riots. Let's listen into this press conference there on Capitol Hill.
It's the only reason I hesitate to tell you what the exact tip was, but yes, that was absolutely the moment, and it was due to the diligent and incredible work of a team in the Washington field office that came in and just scoured through this over and over and over and over again.
In general, was it forensic? Was it a phone call? Was it something about a vehicle?
We'll just leave it generally forensic evidence. Yeah, it's fair enough.
How long
to say.
ago was that?
Excuse me?
How long ago that was?
I'd rather not say because of the ongoing interview process, and I don't want to. Yeah.
I just want to add something to tell you how thorough this team was. That moment, that was kind of like the aha moment, that wasn't the end. This team continued to work and work and work to get every bit of evidence that we could get. We didn't stop at that moment, and that's a testament to the fact that the team wanted every possible piece of evidence that they could gather.
One more?
One more, Kelly O'Donnell, NBC.
Thank you so much. Have you recovered the notable sneakers? Have you done surveillance of this suspect from that aha moment to when you exercised the search warrants today? And obviously this happened on January 5th into January 6th. How should the public look at this case separate from all of the cases related to what transpired on January 6th and the president's subsequent pardons?
I'm going to let Director Patel take the evidence part. We have to be careful again. You've asked very good investigative questions, but this is ongoing, very active. But America should feel safer today. We say a pipe bomb. These are bombs. These were live, active bombs that were placed in Washington, D.C. Director.
Thank you. This shows you how much detail you and the American public have paid attention to this case. Of course, we analyzed everything that you're seeing on this poster board and information that you will see through the formal charging process and court process. But we want to let that evidence speak for itself because, again, we do not want to disrupt the accountability that we owe the American public. Yes, you heard about the cell phone tower data. Yes, you heard about, of course, we surveil individuals who we think we're going to blow up American citizens. But how and when we do it and why we do it is not something we're ever going to reveal unless the Department of Justice deems it fit at trial. So we appreciate your attention to detail and your hardcore investigative work, but you can just imagine some of those same skills are being utilized by this FBI, this Department of Justice, our partners, the ATF, and everybody across the board. And this is an interagency win for the American people.
Was this suspect on your radar?
Okay, we were listening in there to just a piece of that. Pam Bondi saying America should feel safer today after they've made this arrest now. The suspect has been identified as a Brian Colt Jr., according to Attorney General Pam Bondi there, and he's been charged with the use of an explosive device, and more charges are still possible. You heard them saying that this is still a very active and ongoing investigation. Let's come back here home to Chicago, and right now, the family of a woman who was murdered months ago, who now is beginning to seek justice, is speaking right now.
But we make sure he see rainbows in his clouds, okay? Nothing will ever change about that. There is nothing he needs that we cannot provide. He is perfectly well. He is happy. He is thriving. And even when he feels his lowest, we pull him out of it together like we do with each other. He is a superstar like his mom, and he's going to show her better than he can tell her.
Yes.
My name is your name.
Frederica. My name is Dreka. D-R-E-K-A. And I'm the sister they don't like to put in front of the camera, so I'm going to leave now.
Of the support, yes. We had to be moved from 102 to courtroom 700 because of the support that's behind us. We overfilled the courtroom and the other people couldn't sit down to hear their cases. So it was transferred to 700.
Yes.
all this love, all this support. We as one. We did it. This is all family. We did
We
it.
paint the city pink.
We paint the city pink. Yes. Paint the city pink for you. We gonna paint the city pink for you.
My name is Tina McMiller. We have a TINAMCMILLER. We have a song that was made for Romika. Can we do one little verse for y'all? Y'all ready?
Yes.
Come on, let's go. We gon' shake the city pink for you. Roll, we gon' paint the city pink for you.
We got it. Yo, we did it.
Love y'all.
Birthday to you. It's the best birthday gift ever.
All right. This family has been through quite a bit. It's good to be able to see their smiles today, but over the last several months, they have had quite a bit of heartache here. The woman charged with killing Romika Blackman, these are Romika's family members here in pink that were singing a song that they dedicated to her, has been in court this morning. So Romika was 31 years old when she was gunned down. She was dropping her son off at a South Loop school earlier this year when she got into some type of altercation with a woman who also had a son by the same man. And in that altercation, a gun went off and Romika was sadly killed on that day. The woman who fired that weapon on that day allegedly was arrested and then let go. And so there was a lot of controversy surrounding this story over the last several months as to why she was released if someone lost their life as a result of that altercation. So again, this family now seeking justice, having a day in court for the woman who is charged with killing Romika, and they will continue with this fight here now to try to make sure that this woman spends time behind bars here. Tia Ewing, we are expecting her to come up at some point in time and to just debrief us on this case, give us a little bit more background information on this particular case. She has been keeping in touch with the family here. That courtroom, and they actually had to move courtrooms because at one point in time there were so many people in the courtroom. There were so many supporters of the woman who fired the gun and also Romika Blackman. So a lot to get to there, a lot to sift through there. But again, that was Romika Blackman's family, at least smiling today as they begin to seek justice in this case. There's a lot to get to in this hour here that we're working on. We have some things that will make you smile, but we also just being very honest with you, have one of the most disturbing stories that we have followed in a while that's coming up in this hour as well. So we have a $17.5 million settlement from the Board of Education on behalf of a former Chicago public school student sexually abused by an administrator. The story is scary, especially for parents or guardians. It is sad to hear the details about what happened to this young woman. But most importantly, it's just critical that we all understand that these types of things happen, that this is real. It's not make-believe. It's not a story on TV, that's in a script, that this really happened to someone. And this was a historic settlement that took place just yesterday, that was approved yesterday by the school board. So we're going to talk a little bit more with the attorneys who brought that case and to try to balance out some of this. We, go highs, lows, to balance out some of the harsh details there. We're going to restore your faith in humanity, I feel, courtesy of the Bears, or should I say the Bears. Cassie Carlson is over at Hallis Hall, and she's getting ready to interview the Chicago Bears club winner for Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year. And for this year, that will be DJ Moore. So again, we have a lot to look forward to here that's coming up in this hour. But we want to get now to the trial of a New York man for He's accused of killing healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year. Lisa Evers with our sister station is joining me now. So many eyes on this case from the start, between the brutal manner that Brian Thompson was killed, the search for the suspect, and how people really started to rally around him as a symbol of bigger problems with the healthcare industry as a whole. Lisa, do we have you now? Okay, all right. We're still waiting on Lisa. We're trying to work out some things there. So as soon as we get her on the line, we'll bring her back in. But that is a story that so many people, as I said, have been watching from the very beginning, that those images of who we believe to be Luigi Mangione walking up behind healthcare CEO Brian Thompson and shooting him in cold blood. And the reason behind it and the way that people have responded to it, there is a bigger conversation there as well. So let's take a quick break. We will reset. We will get Lisa's line straight, and we'll come right back with that conversation. All right, everyone, it's just about 1:15 now. We have Lisa Evers with our sister station in New York, who is going to join me now to talk a little bit about this particular case that we mentioned going into the break, the killing of CEO Brian Thompson, the healthcare CEO. And there were three things that stuck out to me, Lisa, that I think that have people following it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
I hear you now.
Okay, so I was mentioning that there were three things I think that really garnered a lot of attention with this case. One being, of course, the brutal manner that Brian Thompson was killed, the search for the suspect, Luigi Mangione, and then how people started to rally around him as a symbol of like the bigger problems with the healthcare system.
Well, those are all definitely key points. What's happening here in New York right now is a pre-trial hearing, and this is pretty standard for any of these, any cases like murder cases in particular. But here, this is starting to look very unusual, Anita, because they're calling a lot of witnesses. More than 24 witnesses already are on the list to be called, and this is now day 3, and this is coming, all of this today. Let's remember, 1 year ago to the day, sorry, it's very windy here. 1 year ago to the day, this is the day that United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was shot and killed in Midtown Manhattan outside of that Hilton Hotel. And so there's a lot of, there's a lot of emotion around this day, but there's also a lot of questions for Luigi Mangione. He's facing murder charges here in the New York State courts. It's called second-degree murder because in order to get first-degree murder charges, there have to be what they call special circumstances, which means like killing a police officer or terrorism, which the Manhattan DA tried to get added to this case. So the big question, though, of this and why it's so important to this ongoing story is that they're trying to get the backpack, his defense team is trying to get the backpack excluded as evidence in the trial. The prosecutors, of course, want that backpack admitted. The defense saying that they violated his constitutional rights by not getting a search warrant for the backpack and that there was no immediate need in order to search it without a search warrant. And then in terms of the prosecution, they want their hands on that backpack because that had the gun in it. It also had a notebook in it that they said had the what's been called the manifesto, his writings, Anita, what you were referring to, this manifesto and this anti-healthcare system rant, as well as, according to what the Manhattan DA says, was a detailed plan of the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. So that's very, very important to the prosecution in order to try to convince a jury down the road that these murder charges are the right charges. Anita?
Yeah, and it's been so public from the start. What kind of punishment is he facing?
Well, he would face life behind bars if he's found guilty of the charges here in New York State and New York State court. And you were talking also about, the sort of cult status that came with this, which was very unusual. We did see some supporters out here, not too many today, but the first day there were some supporters that were out here earlier on in the whole, when he was going through the process initially, the legal system. There were a lot more, but then the weather was a lot different. It's very cold. It's the coldest day I think we've had so far this season here in New York, and very, very windy, as you can see. But I think that the whole thing, it's the judge in this case he's described to me by lawyers who've had cases before him as a no-nonsense judge, and there's a chance he may throw that backpack out. But police investigators, from what the police tell me, they still have a lot of other evidence in order to try to get a conviction. But that backpack really does contain a lot of the key evidence. So the people that have been on the stand all week long have been the Altoona and Pennsylvania State police officers who were the ones that were questioning him initially and arrested him initially. Anita?
Yeah, because he was like in a McDonald's with allegedly that backpack when some people inside said, hey, I think that's the guy from the videos that we've seen all over the place. Have you seen any family members of either Brian Thompson or Luigi Mangione?
Well, we wouldn't expect Brian Thompson's family to be here. There's a pre-trial hearing. Though typically, any family members would come out at the time of the trial and make a statement at some point in some of these cases. And Luigi Mangione, it's interesting you brought up the family issue because he was questioned. There was testimony today from a Pennsylvania police officer. They were asking him about his next of kin, and he said his mother, and then he said, and earlier he said he was homeless. There was just a lot about that, but none that we know of, and it's doubtful. Most of the media, it's not a huge courtroom, and most of the people in the courtroom, there's a lot of reporters, there's a lot of people involved with the judicial system that are in there. He has a legal defense team, obviously, and he's back in there today, and we'll see how this goes. But this could actually end up, according to what the lawyers are telling me, this could actually end up going until next week, Anita. So we'll see what happens. But that backpack is key. That's going to be a turning point, one way or the other, in this this prosecution of Luigi Mangione in the New York State court system.
Yeah, that backpack
Anita?
is huge for sure. And yeah, I was asking about the family because there were a lot of questions about his family and whether they had reached out or anyone had come to see him since he's been locked up, or at what point in time did his family see those same videos that the people in McDonald's saw and said, oh, that's my son, or that's, whomever the family member may have been. This case has raised the question about security for other very public CEOs or just public officials as a whole.
Oh no, absolutely. And the corporate, there's a whole other world. Like, we're familiar being in the news business, with the local police department, the local DAs, the state officials on that level. But there's a whole industry for corporate security for these high-level corporate executives, because it's not just in the healthcare field, but in a lot of industries they're targeted. They're by disgruntled people. There's other kinds of threats about them. There's also the corporate espionage that's a very real thing in terms of stealing trade secrets or getting a head start on somebody else's patent that they're trying to get, given the official go-ahead on. All of those types of things. But in terms of being able to move around, I mean, you would think at that hours, like early in the morning, walking out of a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, okay, well, it's still dark, but, it's going to be okay. And it wasn't. So I think that, they may revisit this kind of, I'm sure afterwards there were many CEOs that revisited their own personal security and can I even go out and get a cup of coffee on my own, in another place? Do I have to really think twice? But it goes to show you that he was carefully, that if in fact in that video that we saw of the alleged shooter of Brian Thompson, that if that is in fact proven to be Luigi Mangione, it speaks to how much detail went into this. Like, how did he know at that very moment or at that particular time that he would be coming out of the hotel? Mm-hmm. Because it was before the officially scheduled events of the conference that Thompson was attending. So how did he know at that time? Were there other people involved? Were there people that tipped him off? There's a lot of questions too and I'm sure investigators have some of the answers and we just haven't gotten them yet. But there's a lot of questions about how this whole thing actually happened at that particular moment, because it wasn't like it was 10 o'clock in the morning when that street would have been packed with people, or later on in the afternoon when it would have been, you wouldn't have had a bare space on the sidewalk because there were so many people. So that's something that I'm looking to find out, and looking to see what comes out, which I'm sure will come out in the trial. Anita?
Yeah, and at one point there was like a GoFundMe or something like that was set up for him from the supporters that you were saying, some of them have been outside or whatnot. And I believe that was taken down, right?
Well, there was no I don't know about a GoFundMe, but his legal defense team set up an official website for Luigi Mangione, and they raised, as of September, which was the last notices, the last information that I saw public about it, they had raised over $1.5 million for his legal defense team.
Wow.
They put the website out because they had created it because they had so many people who who wanted to donate money, and 1.5 million is a lot of money sounds like a lot of money to us, but in terms of a legal defense with what he's facing, they're going to need every penny of that. And so I don't know, I'm sure people are still donating, but that's where it's at. But the legal defense, his legal team said, oh, wait a minute, the people want to donate, we better set this up officially and legally, so it doesn't come back to bite us or cause any other additional problems. Anita?
Yeah, and then just oddly enough, he is in the same prison with Diddy, right?
Well, actually, Diddy was transferred to Fort Dix, Federal Correctional Institution, which is in southern part of New Jersey. It's a low security federal facility. He's there because he qualified for one of the federal drug treatment programs while he's incarcerated. So that's where but for a while they were both there together. It's called MDC, the Metropolitan a detention center. It's one of the worst federal detention centers in the United States. I call it the notorious MDC because we've done stories there and weather like this where there was no heat in there. There been a lot of other problems with violence and that type of thing. But yeah, now he's going there from the federal detention center here to the state court, and sometimes he has to wait hours for the transportation because he has to have the correction officers with him in order to get back into the federal system. So it's not an easy commute for him at this point.
Wow.
Anita?
Wow. So many different layers to this story here. I certainly appreciate you being out in the cold. We are getting ready to talk about the dangerous cold here in Chicago when we come back from another break.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, thank you so much for your time and being out there.
All
I
right,
appreciate
Anita,
it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you take care.
All right, take care. Thank you so much.
All right,
bye-bye.
everyone. It's about 1:26. Let's take a quick break. Okay, everybody, it's about 1:33 right now, and it's time to smile. Why? Because the Bears are on fire right now. It is week 14 in the NFL season. The Bears sitting on top. And some say that this game this weekend that will be on Fox Chicago, maybe the biggest Bears-Packers game in 24 years. There's a lot riding on it, I guess. Let's go to our own Cassie Carlson, who is joining me now from Hallis Hall. Thank you so much for, I know your day is busy, taking a moment to chat with me.
Yeah, no problem, Anita. And you just mentioned it. Some calling it the biggest game in 24 years. That might be a stretch, but I do think that the Bears being the #1 team in the NFC right now, you can't understate what that means, not only to the city of Chicago, but really to the entire league, because when the Bears are good, football is better. And to have Bears-Packers round one, mind you, they have to play each other twice in 3 weeks, coming up this week at Lambeau is an exciting one. And it's not must win because the Bears are in a good position right now, sitting at 9-3. But if they lose, the Packers are right behind them in the NFC North, and the Bears could drop significantly in the conference standings.
Everybody wants to play well in December. And regardless of what kind of drama or things that happen early on in a season, you're hoping that all cylinders are firing by December. So let's talk about injuries. Are we healthy now? Is everybody back in the game this weekend?
Hopefully getting healthier. We'll get the official injury report from practice today. They practiced on Tuesday, so we didn't get one then. And then yesterday was an estimation based off of a walkthrough. But just being out at practice, we saw that running back Kyle Mangione was out there. He was dealing with an ankle injury earlier in the week. We're continuing to track the status of linebacker TJ Edwards, who's missed a handful of games with a hand and hamstring injury. And although the linebackers have stepped up in his place, it's always good to have one of your top linebackers back, especially going into Green Bay, where there's a high chance that they're going to run the ball with Josh Jacobs. And then I think you're looking at Rome Odunze to see if he's back healthy, because he was dealing with a foot injury earlier this week as well. The thing with the Bears and their injuries really is they've had a lot throughout the season, but they're kind of getting healthy at the right time. As you mentioned, you want to be playing your best ball in the month of December. So to have guys in your secondary like Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon back as well, and they're going to continue to get healthier as the month rolls on, is a good sign as they try to make this stretch run one of the toughest parts of their season to hopefully get a playoff berth.
Yeah, because we play the Packers twice in December. So this one is away before they come back home and have to face them again. What have you heard anything about, like, okay, obviously This rivalry is deep, but last year's game hurt. The very end, when we thought we were getting ready to win, when they were here, and all of a sudden, we had a blocked field goal, and it was like, what just happened? And it kind of felt like a, indication of the whole season, how the whole season was last year, and it's so different this year.
Yeah, it definitely is. And mind you, the Bears went to Lambeau last year in Week 18 and beat the Packers. And so people felt like that might be the changing of the tide and the rivalry that's been on Green Bay's side for the last handful of years. Now, they're not going to say that that really translates over into this season. It's a totally different team here in Chicago, especially when you look at the head coach and the culture that he's built here in this locker room, and the fact that they believe that they can win any game and they're playing like they can beat any team. They just beat the reigning Super Bowl champions in Philadelphia against the Eagles on Black Friday in front of a national stage. That's really kind of changed the narrative around what people think about this team, because before that game, everyone was discrediting their wins, saying they hadn't played anyone with a winning record, they hadn't beaten a good defense, and then they go out against the Vic Fangio defense and they dominated that game in Philadelphia. And so going into Green Bay with another team that's really good, one that Ben Johnson said might be the best defense they've seen all year, they're going to have to play another complete game, and it's another good opportunity for them to prove that they have what it takes to compete with the best. And Ben Johnson is going to go into this game like it's just the next game on their schedule. Despite him calling out Matt LaFleur in his opening press conference saying he likes beating him 2 times a year, they know that they have to be so disciplined going into a place like Lambeau Field. It's a really tough place to play. It's going to be really, really cold. I haven't even looked at the wind chill yet because I'm a little bit scared that I'm going to have to stand outside in it for 2 hours early in the morning for Bears Game Day Live. But the Bears are running the ball really well. They have the second-ranked rushing offense led by DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, and also the offensive line that people around the league are now calling the best O-line in the NFL, which is crazy to think because it's hard to think of the last time the Bears had a good O-line. So a lot of good things are going to have to go the Bears' way. They're going to have to play another complete game in all 3 phases, but I think this team believes that they have the capability to do it.
Yeah, you talked about the discipline going into this game. Let's talk about the energy. We had the long lines outside of the Wiener Circle this week, coming off of the last game, and obviously this game in and of itself, whenever we see Bears Packers, that gives its own energy. But we are riding at a high right now. But how hard is that to stay in the game when there is so much energy circulating around the game?
I think everyone inside the locker room would tell you they try to put their blinders on, and whether it's hard to stay off social media because most of them are seeing their names pop up each and every day, but to just trust themselves and trust their own preparation and know that they haven't really proven anything. And I think they have to keep the same mindset. And Ben Johnson's really credited the veterans in this locker room, guys like Grady Jarrett, Joe Thuney, Kevin Byard, for keeping the main thing inside the building and knowing that it's one game at a time, it's 1 week at a time, it's one practice at a time. And so they can't overlook anything, and they can't really buy into the hype around themselves. As Kevin Byard said on Tuesday earlier this week, he's like, the 5-game winning streak that they have right now, it simply means nothing because they are going into a division opponent on the road, a tough place to play, and there's still a lot riding on the rest of the season. They have not made up the playoffs yet. They have 9 wins right now, and I was talking to Jalen Johnson on Tuesday. I'm like, what do you think the number is? Do you think it's 11? He's like, it might be 12 this season to make sure that you can clinch a spot in the playoffs. So by no means are they done with the season. They have a lot of games to win, and they're going to get a lot of primetime games, a lot of night games. That's the good thing that happens when you're really good in the NFL and you're in a market like Chicago, is everyone wants to see you. And I was talking to someone, they're like, do you think the Bears will continue to have primetime games? They're like, anytime you can put Chicago in primetime, you're going to do it. So the Bears have a chance to show the entire nation what they're made of, but they got to play a complete game.
They do. And the Packers have been interesting this season. I mean, they've had some highs and some questionable games themselves.
I wouldn't say interesting. I think the Packers are a really, really good team, and some people have them up there as one of the top teams in the NFL completely. And what they did with bringing in Micah Parsons at the start of the season was a total game changer. And if you just watch some of their early games, they looked like they could be Super Bowl contenders from early on in this season. And that's when the Bears were still kind of finding their identity.
True.
And so to see Jordan Love playing at a high level, Ben Johnson pointed out just his accuracy. He made some really good 3rd, 4th down throws last week against the Lions Lions when they won that game. He's playing at a really high level. That's a really good quarterback right there. And they still want to see more from this passing game with Caleb Williams. They like how he's managing the game right now, but I think that's the one area of the offense you can point to where his completion percentage is way down, not where they want it to be, hovering around that 70% mark that Ben Johnson pointed out early in training camp. But I do think you have to credit the defense, and defense travels, and I think the run game can travel as well. So relying on those running backs, being able to pound the rock and seeing the way the offensive line is creating holes for them could be a difference maker at Lambeau on Sunday.
Okay, you mentioned them trying to stay off of social media. One person whose name is all over there today especially is DJ Moore. You're going to be speaking to him in just a short while here. He is... We know that he's a great guy on a regular basis, but now the Walter Payton Man of the Year award is going to go to him. Talk a little bit about why you think he was chosen.
Well, every team has a nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. They call it the most prestigious award in all of football because it's all about what you do off the field to give back. And truly, that's the lasting legacy that a lot of these players will have, is the impact they've made in the community. So DJ Moore has his More to Life Foundation. I feel like every week he's out there doing something, whether I know he's been at Targets or just giving back to schools, his camps in the summer. He's all around the community in the Chicagoland area. And I know he loves his kids. He's a family man. And so he gets them involved too. So we'll be talking to him here in a short bit, but it was cute to see the video they released because they had him talking about some of his mentors that he remembered growing up, and then in walks his entire family with Ryan Poles. And it truly is an honor for all these guys who are nominated, and then they find out who the winner is at the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always such a beautiful moment, and we love to see Walter Payton's family, Brittany, who worked here at Fox 32, and the whole family show up in the way that they do every year, honoring his legacy. So what are the predictions for this game?
Oh, I didn't know I was going to be put on the spot on a Thursday, Anita. Prediction for this game. Well, I will say, I've covered the Bears now for 4 years, and so it took me a while to buy into the belief of what was going on this season. I was like, gosh, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit jaded. I've just seen so much losing in my time covering the Bears. But the way they dominated that game in Philly, and by doing it relying on the run and also really stopping the run and Saquon Barkley, I feel like that's a recipe that this team can carry with them throughout the rest of the season. I do think the conditions could play an impact in the passing game, even though they want to emphasize it again this weekend, it just being so cold, and you can guess that there's going to be some significant wind at Lambeau Field as well. I think it's going to be, I'll go Bears. I'll go 24-21 Bears.
Ooh, 24-21 Bears. I'm writing it down because we're going to talk back with you. So tell us a little bit more about what you have to do for the rest of the day to get ready for this evening.
All right, so we got a lot coming up. We're going to do another show right here at 1:45, Chicago Sports Tonight, which you can catch tonight at 9:30 on Fox 32 Chicago. Then we go into Open Locker Room. Nashawn Wright was named NFC Defensive Player of the Month in November because he had 5 total takeaways. He's been balling out this year and it's really stepped up in place of Jalen Johnson. So we're going to talk to him. As you mentioned, we're going to talk to DJ Moore as well, and then we'll have more updates and stories in the 5 and 9 o'clock newscasts.
Okay, and we're going to bring that to everyone here on Chicago Live just as soon as Cassie is talking with DJ Moore, so don't worry about it. We'll have it right here. Thank you so much, Cassie. We appreciate it. Get busy, girl.
Thanks, Anita. Talk to you soon.
All right. About 1:45 right now. We're going to be right back. All right, 146 right now. One of the things that I talked about right off the top of this broadcast was a story that I think it's so important for us to talk about, although the details may be hard for some people to hear. But important to know that things like this are happening, especially in our schools with our babies who are in our public schools. There's now a $17.5 million settlement by the Board of Education that has been approved. After a young woman that was a student in Chicago public schools was sexually abused by an administrator. Let's go ahead and bring in Bryce Hensley. He is a founding partner of Gould, Greco, and Hensley to talk a little bit more about this case and especially the settlement that was just approved. Thank you so much for your time and your dedication to this case.
Well, thanks for having me on.
So I want to first just ask you when you all got wind of this case.
Well, we were contacted by our client and back in about 2021, right around the time that she made the report to the Chicago police.
Mm-hmm. So it's been about 4 years that you all have been working on this case. Could you even believe, quite honestly, the details that you were hearing at first?
Well, I think what happened over time as we dug deeper and deeper into this case is that we continued to discover information that shocked us as lawyers. We handled sexual abuse cases at our firm. It's the primary focus of what we do, representing victims and survivors of sexual abuse. And the details of this case in particular were shocking on their face. And then as we proceeded through the actual litigation, as we learned more about this school and the broader context of the Chicago public schools, the history that they've had with situations like this, it was shocking.
Yeah, that is troubling for sure. Even in my time being here covering CPS, whenever we have a case of sexual abuse that comes up, they're always horrible to hear about. But this one really stuck out to me. Can you take us through some of the journey, some of the story that was given to you all?
Sure. So back in 2012, our client enrolled as a freshman at Social Justice High School, which is one of 4 high schools on the Little Village Lawndale High School campus over on the southwest side of the city. She was a freshman. She went through her freshman year, her sophomore year, when she was eventually approached by the then Dean of Students, Brian Crowder, who asked her for her Snapchat. Our client, being 15 years old at the time, of course, is going to comply when the individual responsible for discipline at the school comes up and asks for her social media handle. She provided it, and he began a process of grooming her over the next 6 to 8 months before turning the relationship from an electronic form of communication to actually a physical, inappropriate relationship. Beginning in the start of her junior year, when she was 16 years old, he began sexually abusing her physically. That continued throughout her junior and her senior years of high school when she was underage. During that time, he impregnated her twice and subsequently took her to receive abortions. In Illinois, minors cannot undergo an abortion procedure without parental consent. And this individual, Crowder, posed as her stepfather, forged his signature as her stepfather, and consented to her receiving the abortion to conceal the sexual abuse that he was perpetrating against her. A horrific case in every single way. Our client eventually came forward to the police and reported this, and Crowder faced a criminal trial earlier this year and was sentenced to 22 years in prison for what he did to her.
Did he plead guilty?
He did not. He pleaded not guilty and took his chances with a jury, and the jury ended up coming back finding him guilty.
Has he ever showed any remorse? Has he ever released a statement or spoke in court to try to explain what happened?
He did not. He did not take the stand in the criminal case. exercise his Fifth Amendment rights, which he is allowed to do. But as far as I know, there was never any kind of a public statement of any kind.
It's beyond comprehension to even think about what this young woman went through over that period of time. And it is such a precious time in your life that's now marred by the things that took place to her. Has she talked about, the impact, the long-term impact that this has had on her?
She has. And I think the most important thing to remember is that for survivors of sexual abuse, so much of the time there is a delay, right? People try to cope with what they went through by not talking about it, by trying to move on. And that's, in fact, what our client tried to do. She tried to move on. She tried to physically move away and get through it. And eventually, the trauma manifested itself in her everyday life. And she made the brave step to come forward, report it to police, to law enforcement. And that was a crucial step in her healing journey. Bringing now the civil lawsuit and turning to the settlement that we reached in this case, that was about securing some form of justice for herself. Obviously, the criminal process is designed to punish the individual that did this, but that does nothing, or very little, I should say, for the survivor themselves. And so that's what we do at our firm, is we represent people in the civil justice system. And she had to tell her story in this case in order to get the result that we did. And this is obviously a huge step for her, but the reality is this is a lifelong process for her that she's going to have to be dealing with for the rest of her life.
Yeah. And, we talk about justice for her, but in you all's statement, following the settlement, it was later revealed that this teacher was alleged to have also groomed and abused a minor student from the school, another minor student from the school. And then there were other issues in that school during the same time period. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. And so what actually happened there was our client did come forward. She came forward during her senior year. She reported it to a fellow teacher who has a mandatory reporting requirement under Illinois law. Our client was 17 at the time. She informed this teacher that she was engaged in a physical relationship with this teacher, an adult, and that teacher did nothing. She said nothing to anybody. She didn't report it to the police. She didn't report it to DCFS. She didn't report it to any authority figure whatsoever. And the main reason, at least what we contended in the case, was because that teacher herself was engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a student at the same time. And what we learned throughout this case was that there were at least, and I say at least because we don't know for sure, but there were at least 7 other teachers, administrators at this high school engaged in relationships with students or with former students who they began the grooming process with when they were students. And this was the broader context of this case that we were really focused on, which is the problems, the longstanding problems within the Chicago public schools of this exact type of behavior from their administrators.
It is unfathomable. And that's why I say, for as many cases as we have heard, and they are all disgusting, they are all very hard on the heart to hear. You don't want any child to go through anything like what we hear in these many different instances. But this case this case was on a totally different level for so many reasons. In terms of what will stick in your memory, I believe I'll remember this case for the rest of my life, even because it's just that horrible. So the school district, the Board of Education, they've approved a $17.5 million settlement. Have you heard of that before?
So it's the largest reported recovery of a school abuse case in Illinois history, as far as we know. In terms of nationwide, it is certainly near the top. There are very few cases that are this egregious on their facts, and I think that the board's approval of this settlement recognizes the terrible situation that our client was put through for years of her life. But this is the largest Illinois abuse recovery for something that happened at a school that we are aware of.
Yeah, and at any point in time, I mean, I guess when I was kind of reading through things, just knowing we were getting ready to speak today, the school district, this is a non-admission from the school district, even though they are approving this settlement, correct?
Correct. They denied liability and wrongdoing. I mean, I think what one can look at, though, is that the criminal process that was carried out found Crowder guilty, and the settlement itself is a recognition that our client's story and her version of what happened was something that was, in our minds, it is what happened, and certainly was credible enough for the board to come forward with this. But I will point out, and I'm happy to talk more about this, that I think there is still work to be done, and we're encouraging the board to continue that work to make sure that something like this never happens again.
Absolutely. What were some of the, I mean, other than the non-reporting, when a student actually tells you what is happening to them, the non-reporting in and of itself is just a lot. But aside from that, what were some of the systemic failures that you all cite?
Well, I think it starts from the very beginning. There were issues with the hiring of this individual in the first place and whether or not he was qualified to be in the position that he was in within the school, which was a dean of students. It's basically a step below the principal and vice principal. So it started from the very beginning. It comes back to training, like you mentioned, with respect to mandatory reporting requirements. It comes back to monitoring. What are the signs and what are the things that teachers and other individuals at the school that have these reporting requirements should be noticing? And what is the school doing to make sure that teachers are fully informed on what that might look like? This happened back in 2016, and the literature, the studies, the research that's been done into this area, because it's so pervasive nationwide, especially in Chicago, but there's so much that's developed over the past 10 years since this all transpired at the high school that we are encouraging the board to reevaluate all of their policies and procedures as it relates to protecting children. There are methods out there, there are groups out there that specialize in this very area, and we are encouraging the board to explore those to make sure that the students at Chicago Public Schools remain safe and protected from situations like this.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing that can ever come from horrible situations is that there's at least some remedy to make sure that other people don't experience it in the future. Are there any other lawsuits? I mean, how did we find out about these 7 other educators there at the same time who had inappropriate relationships? And then are there any other lawsuits tied to them?
Well, there are certainly ways that the public can go out and look for this information. The Chicago Tribune and other reporting agencies have published what's called the Betrayed series. That shined a very bright light into this very problem at the Chicago Public Schools. And it was thanks to reporting and news channels like yours and others that were able to help uncover a lot of this. And then using tools like what's called FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, where people can go and actually request information. We made use of every single tool that we could to uncover as much as we could. And as far as we know about this specific high school, I don't know if there are other lawsuits out there, but I do know that there have been a number of lawsuits and settlements over the years involving the Chicago Public Schools for this very problem.
Yeah, and of course, every year the budget comes up, there are issues connected to it. Having to pay $17.5 million for something that never should have happened, you have to wonder, I mean, if you didn't have to use that money where the great things that it could have been used for, instead of having to pay for something like this. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that that happens now? Is there a timeline for when that money is actually turned over? Or what happens now that it's been approved?
Yeah, I mean, that's all subject to things with the Board of Education, but I think looking forward, what is going to happen, or what I really hope happens, is that the board takes a long, hard look at this specific case, what our client went through, and really digs down deep into their system, into their policies, into their procedures, and figures out how can we prevent this from happening, and how can we make sure that our students' safety and innocence is preserved from the time they walk through the doors till the time they graduate and move on with their lives as adults.
Yeah, it would be a good thing if we never had to report on anything like this again. Attorney Hensley, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's 2:02, everyone. Let's take a break, Awusa, and we'll be right back. All right, everyone, it's about 2:05. I tried to give you the warning, multiple times about having to do the last story that we were talking about. I know it was difficult. It was difficult for me, and I'm sure it was difficult for many of you to listen to. But again, just so important that we hear about what's actually happening in our schools. When you send your children off to school, you should have the peace of mind to know that they are being taken care of by qualified individuals who have their best interests at heart. And so to hear about a situation like that is really heartbreaking. But again, a $17.5 million settlement, it won't change what that young woman went through, but hopefully it sends a message that things like that should never happen again. So thank you for staying with us. If you stayed with us through that, I appreciate it. So we're in our 2 o'clock hour now. Let's talk about some of the things that we're going to get to in this hour. We are going to bring up our chief meteorologist, Emily Walls, because, oh boy, is it a frigid day outside. And I mean, frigid, it's honestly dangerous heat that we are not heat, we're far from heat, dangerous temperatures that we're experiencing outside. We have had negative wind chills today. So we're going to check in with her about when we might be able to thaw out just a bit. As she said, we're kind of in the deep freeze for a while, but it may not be as bad as it is today for too much longer here. We're anticipating the possibility of a SpaceX launch. We thought we were going to get one yesterday too, so I'll say that, and it got scrubbed. We'll see what happens today. If we can bring that to you, it should be somewhere around 225. Hopefully we'll be able to bring that to you. We're going to check in with the Chicago Fire Department. This time of year, when we do have these temperatures that go down into the basement, people find different ways to heat their homes, and some of those do not work for many reasons, whether we have a fire because of candles or a space heater or frying the turkey last week or whatever the case may be. The fire department ends up very busy at this time of year, and then they have their own issues with the cold temperatures out there as well. So we are going to check in with them. For those of you all who have been following the Ramika Blackman case, we anticipate having Tia Ewing up here to talk more about that coming up, and that should be around 2:15, 2:20, somewhere around that time. So hang with us for more on that. But a big announcement happened yesterday at the White House that we took you to. The president was speaking about some new regulations, well, actually easing regulations for automakers. And one aspect of it that he said that he thought would be the big talker that has turned out to be true has been the car loan interest deduction. It is a new thing, a temporary tax break, and I want to bring in Woody Woodring he is the president of Woody, Buick, and GMC to talk a little bit more about it. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, how are you?
Doing all right. I hope you're okay as well.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about your reaction to hearing about this tax break.
Well, any tax break is always good, and especially in the auto industry when many years ago the interest was 100% deductible. So looks like maybe they're on their way to coming back with that. But it helps out quite a few people, especially people with an income less than $100,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it allows.
It's going really well. It's not a advertised type of an incentive, but it's definitely a tool to help people afford to buy the car.
Sure.
So it's working out for us.
Which helps you all in the end, and automakers have been through a lot over the last couple of years. Talk a little bit about that. There was like the chip issue and so many other things.
Yeah, definitely. And then with the tariffs and the price of the cars going up, it makes it a little tougher affordability for people with a lesser of an income. But it's going really well with us. The cars definitely have to be finally assembled in the United States, and they have to be bought new from 2025 through 2028, and it goes back to 12/31 retroactive to 12/31 of 2024. So people that have purchased cars earlier up to now, some may or may not be aware that they have that deduction. So they're going to have to somehow, hopefully with our dealership, we'll inform people that they need to go back and check and see if they get some deductibility.
Yeah. One thing that seems like it's, it may help in some ways, but then, is also an issue. You mentioned the tariffs. The president said that this is being afforded because of the tariffs, but then the tariffs have also been a deterrent that have hurt a lot of people as well.
Yeah, well, most of the cars with the tariffs on them are not made and completed in the United States of America, and that's all part of the incentive to get the manufacturers to build and final assemble their cars in America. So, like with our Buick GMC line, we've got majority of our cars qualify, but some of them do not because they're not final assembly in the United States. But it's definitely an asset that we can use to help people make that decision whether they can afford the car or not.
Yeah. And so this will allow eligible taxpayers to deduct up to $10,000 in interest per year on the qualifying new vehicle loans for tax years 2025 through 2028. Tell me about the importance of the end of the year right now for a car dealer.
Well, that's our Christmas. There's tremendous amount of tax incentives out there for year end. Section 179, people can depreciate if they have a business, up to 100% of their vehicles. manufacturers gear up production to have their year-end special deals. This is just another tool in the box to help people make a decision. But no, our whole year, as far as growth, really depends on the fourth quarter and definitely on December.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a great time to be a car dealer, is in the month of December, whether you're in 100-degree weather or 30 below zero weather. The manufacturers are incentivizing the cars, so it's a good time to get to the dealer and make a good deal.
Tell me about, as you begin a new year, what the outlook is for 2026.
Well, right now, with the Fed's possibly lowering the interest rate, anytime interest rates get lower, that makes things more affordable on the consumer side, especially even on the dealer side. Our floor plan costs go down, and we pass all that on to the consumer, and the consumers pay less per month because their interest rates are going to be lower. So I'm very positive going into 2026. We're loaded with inventory. Manufacturers are building good quality cars. The incentives are out there. It's just a good time. Trade-in values are at the top level that they've been in about 6 months. So used cars are strong. That means customers get top dollar for their trade-in. So you save on interest, you get top dollar for your trade. The manufacturers have the largest incentives of the year going. So it's just a beautiful time of the year.
Tell me a little bit about Woody Buick GMC. Give me a little background information.
Well, we've been around a long time. I started as a lot boy when I was 16, so I've been with Buick 55 years. We have 2 locations, Naperville and Gurnee. We're a highly recognized customer service dealer. We've been dealer of the year for General Motors about 17 years running. We're just named J.D. Power Quality Customer Satisfaction Dealer. I think there was only 400 in the country. So we're customer orientated. We want to make sure our customers get a good deal and they're totally and completely satisfied. That's what we do.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming on the show to share with us today. Thank you so much, and best of luck this December.
All righty, I appreciate it. Sorry for my attire. We were moving snow. All good.
It's quite all right. We know we're catching people in the middle of their busy days, so thank you for your time.
Awesome.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
It's about 2:14, everybody. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, it's 2:16 right now. Thank you for staying with us. We have Tia Ewing, who is here now. You've been on one of the most watched stories of the week here, the case of Ramika Blackman. And this goes back several months.
September.
And you have followed it the entire way. So walk us through how we got to today.
So how we got to today is yesterday at 3:25 in the afternoon. I was working on something completely different, got a phone call from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office letting me know these charges were indeed filed and that Quadasia Johnson, who was the person accused in all of this of shooting Ramika Blackman, was going to be charged at that moment with first-degree murder and that she would appear in court today. So fast forward to today is when the actual hearing happened. And we found out a lot of, decent information inside that courtroom. One being that Quadasia Johnson and Ramika Blackman, we already knew that they shared the same father of their children.
Correct.
So, Quadasia has a child, a very young child, and Ramika Blackman at the time of her death had a 6-year-old who has now turned 7. He literally turned 7 shortly after his mother was killed. With that being said, we also found out that Quadasia Johnson is indeed pregnant at this moment, 7 weeks pregnant, and her attorneys really tried to drive home that point with the judge in court today for her to be released.
Yeah.
The judge made some pretty straight up statements, one being that when this shooting happened, at one point, the actual alleged shooter, Quadasia Johnson in this case, fist bumped the father that she and Ramika Blackman have in common with their children, fist bumped him after the shooting. And the judge said, someone like that, basically, I'm essentially gonna, melt down his words into essentially what he said, does not deserve to be out roaming the streets. I think that's a very inflammatory thing to find out from witnesses that happened.
Yeah.
And witnesses, I do want to point out the fact that in this case, you got to give it up to the witnesses here to even get us to this point in this case. Because even in the video that you saw, the aftermath of this shooting, these officers that responded, they responded to a chaotic scene. And many of them look like this may have been the first day on the job. I mean, quite frankly, not really understanding who was the shooter, not really understanding who were the witnesses, people walking through the crime scene. We saw that in the video, and so the witnesses said, hey, that's the shooter. That's the person you need to be arresting. That's the person that you need to look out for. And another thing that came out in court in terms of what witnesses saw and heard, they said after that first shot was fired, there was a pause. Why is that important? Somebody may say, okay, why is that important? That's important because you fire one shot at someone, they're down, you pause, and then you ramp up again, and other shots are then fired.
Are they
Why?
saying that's the reason for the premeditated? Obviously, first degree murder would be premeditated.
Right.
Is that so? The second shot, they're saying premeditated because you thought about it to shoot again.
Well, in this case, that was not made officially clear in the courtroom, but that was brought up as witnesses stepping up and how this case has really unfolded. And because of that, the judge did not feel like Quadasia Johnson, no matter pregnant or not, does not deserve to be out here walking the streets.
And that was one of the big issues. I mean, obviously the biggest issue is that a life was lost. So let's say that, but that was one of the big issues going back to the day that this happened. Even though the police came and there was an arrest, she was released.
She was released.
Someone had lost their life and she was released.
And that is how we got involved in the story. So the shooting happened September 8th. She's released. I get a call from a friend of the family member that happens to know my family, being in Chicago. And they're like, hey, have you heard about this story? Is this something that you would cover? And I'm like, yes, I've heard about this story. We've all been wondering what's happening in the course of this investigation. And so that is how the connection even happened. So September 8th, the shooting and killing happens. September 23rd, I do the story. And from there after, I'll give it to the people. They really made sure I would get emails constantly because like you said, it is a case that so many people have questions about. I would get emails constantly saying, is there an update? Is there an update? So every time I got a message, I sent that to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and they would always respond and they would say, no, this is a ongoing investigation. We're still investigating. And one of the issues that came up in this is that Quadasia Johnson had filed, and I believe the date is June, she filed in June an actual order of protection against Romika Blackman, saying that she was indeed the aggressor coming after her, is what she was alleging. We actually found some paperwork. Now, mind you, there could be several different orders of protections, but in this particular case, one of the orders of protection that we definitely can confirm existed was never delivered to Romika Blackman. In fact, every time the sheriff's, I believe it was the Sheriff's Department of Cook County, and I'll go back and review this, but a sheriff's department, just to be safe, tried to deliver this, they could never make contact. And in fact, they tried to deliver it after she was passed on.
Okay, so let's the day that the shooting took place, Romika was going to drop off her son, is that correct?
She had already dropped off her son.
And was coming out of there.
And was coming out.
And how did they, what caused them to interact?
So here's what's interesting about this. And there's so many different narratives about how this played out. So the father that both of these women share, his home is blocks going south from where, I believe it's south from where the school is located. And I've heard different narratives. If you look at the video, you see Romika Blackman's car, and I think I'm correct on this, kind of going back to our original story, in the street. You see Quadeja Johnson's car kind of like behind, I think it was parked on the street or behind her. And so the idea was this a situation where she saw her and hopped out of the car? Was it the reverse? Was she then blocked in? That's the question. That's some of the stuff we don't officially know, because that's all been hearsay. We have, and mind you, I did have witnesses' phone numbers, but I could never get them on the phone to actually say what they saw. So that was all hearsay of why the car was this way. Was it that Romika jumped out? Was it that Quadeja blocked her in? And whatever happened, there was an altercation. And in court today, that did come out that in fact the father had Blackman in a chokehold during the course of this dispute that's unfolding on the street.
And how did he get to the location at the time of the dispute?
He lives a couple of streets
down. And he came out?
So that is unknown. Was he riding in the car with Quadeja Johnson? Was he walking down the street? Keep in mind, it's cold now, but it was not cold at the time. Were they waiting for her? I mean, there's a lot of different questions about that we don't officially have those answers to.
But somehow he hopped in the middle of it.
Somehow he got into the middle of it, puts Romika Blackman, who is a very small framed woman, in a chokehold, ends up the other mother of his child ends up shooting her, and they fist bump. My question now is, and this is the email that I sent after learning these details to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, is he going to be charged?
Well, that was going to be my next question.
Is he an accessory? Is he, is he an accomplice in all of this? Because just based on the details you hear in court, it would make you ask the question, well, where's this guy at?
Right.
Is he going to, I mean, is there now you have to look at the totality of the case. Is there now an agreement that he's now going to be the key witness to testify against Quadeja Johnson? That's all, up in the air, but definitely worth a lot of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how he ended up there at that time, if he had her in a chokehold, was he holding her for something that happened to her? Or will his excuse be, I was trying to break them up and it just looked like that? Or,
you don't know how that'll play out.
You don't.
I do want to go back to something, because this idea of this order of protection has come up, and during the course of reporting here at 532 and around the country, the questions of an order of protection come up, and people are like, that's just literally a sheet of paper. And in this case, when I spoke to the family of Romika Blackman, they were under the impression that order of protection that was filed by Quadeja Johnson was essentially a play, like preparing for what could come next, preparing for the fact that she had threatened her before, and kind of creating this paper trail to make her look like she would be, redeemed in a case of if she did pull the trigger, because she is a concealed carry holder. She has a license to carry a weapon. So that's the family's position on this. I think it's going to be really interesting. The next hearing is December 23rd, I believe this is the date. It's going to be really interesting to hear as more details come out in this
And
case.
is she arguing self-defense?
I don't remember what her argument was officially, but it had been self-defense. So today, I don't know if she entered an official, this is, I'm innocent. I didn't hear that, but she has argued up until this point, because though I never interviewed her, okay, I never interviewed her. I want to make that very clear. I did hear from a relative of Quadasia Johnson, and I gave that relative, I said, listen, this is a platform that believes in fair and name balance, right? So if Quadasia Johnson feels like, because her name had been run through the mud on social media prior to us ever getting to this point, and she felt like that was wrong. She felt like, you know, why is my name being brought into this and I haven't been charged, et cetera. And I told the family member, well, listen, we never mentioned her name. That's social media sleuths, and they have the right to go on social media
and we have nothing
do
to do with that.
And we had nothing to do with that. And I said, you know, we leave this platform open for her to speak. I know at one point she had hired a lawyer, and that the lawyer had told her, do not say anything, let this play out. And so during that communication with the family member, it was very clear to me that she felt like this was self-defense, and that she also felt like she was getting a bad rep, you know, in the social media streets, and that she felt like she was the person that had been threatened by Romika Blackman.
So her story could
It sounds like it's gonna be, she was fighting me.
Yeah, that she hopped out, you know, that I was going on about my way. She hops out, comes at me. I am a concealed carry holder, and I had the right to, you know, protect my life.
But here's the question, and this is, you know, the debate that has existed since this has happened. I'm a concealed carry holder. If someone starts hitting me and we're about the same size, you know, because they're about the same size. They're both pretty petite individuals. At what point is it okay and lawfully, speaking about the law, not what we fabricate in our minds, not what we think, at what point legally is it okay for me to then go grab my gun and shoot you off of a fight?
Yeah, and I guess if you're, and maybe we don't have the exact point at which she retrieved the gun. Was the gun on her when the fight was happening, or did she leave and come back?
That's a good question. And at one point, we do know in the video that the witnesses said, hey, she just put the gun in the car. She just took the gun back to the car, which makes me think, well, I don't know if that meant, you know, she had it on her person. If you're a concealed carry holder, you could, you know, you may have it, you know, stored in your car. You may have it, you know, on your person hidden. So we don't know that part of the story. Again, more details will come from this. But at what point, if the father's out there, and if this is true, you know, the judge said,
the fist bump
and the chokehold, that the dad that they share together had her in a chokehold. What do you need to pull your gun out for?
Yeah, if there's someone who is actively helping you. So today, obviously these, and you mentioned a couple of things. I want to talk about the fact that there were a lot of supporters for both of these women who have shown up in all of this.
Overwhelmingly, looking at the crowd, Romika's favorite color apparently was pink, because you saw just about everyone wearing pink. They had to move the courtroom because of the overwhelming response. Not only has the response been overwhelming online, but in reality here in the city of Chicago, this has impacted a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But I think overwhelmingly Romika had support, but there was supporters there for Quadasia Johnson. It is a horrible situation.
All around.
If anything we could learn from this is, if the man got you going through this kind of stuff, it's time to let him go. I mean, honestly, if he got you fighting this mother and you both have a child, don't you want your siblings to be brother and sister or brothers or whatever the dynamics are versus this? That child did not deserve to come out of that school just feet away from his mother, being shot in the face, to never see his mother again. That child didn't deserve that. And now Quadasia Johnson has a child in the world with no mother. And may not have a father. Right? And then a baby in the womb. What happens to that baby? I mean, the whole story, I think, is what has drawn so many people to it, because it just shows like what we learn when you're growing up. You've heard a parent or somebody in your life say, leave that man alone. And it's unfortunate that it's ended with two lives, very young, beautiful women, both of them, lives being completely destroyed because one made what sounds like, listen, allegedly, right? A really stupid, emotional decision. And that's why they tell you often, you know, I have kids, and I tell my kids, I say, every decision you make counts. Every last one of them. And never get caught up in your emotions when you make decisions, because you're high on emotions. I'm gonna get you when I see you, kind of stupid stuff. And now look.
Yeah, and you know, there's so much to come from this. And again, at the end of the day, there are children involved.
That's the horrible part.
You know, that's the next generation, and there are ripple effects to all of this. So we watched just a piece of when the hearing today ended, and Ramika's family, her mother, and many of the other family members came out of the courtroom. They were smiling.
They were happy.
They were happy about what happened today.
They didn't
and
believe
where
me
this
when
is
I
at
called.
this point.
So I called them because I felt like if it were me, and I got a call that a family member of mine died, and you know, I never knew what was happening, you know, because it's one thing, I think, when the media calls to get answers, it seems like things move a little faster, versus when an everyday person is calling for the answers, it seems like you're waiting.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I got that call, I had one of the family members call the mom, and she initially didn't believe it. She was like, is this real? Because this has been almost 3 months.
They've been waiting for it.
They've been waiting for a while. And so she cried, she processed that, and then she said, when is the court, you know, when is the court date? And so, you know, we'll see how this plays out. You know, I think this is just I think what should happen from this is that if you have a daughter, a young teenage
You know
daughter,
what? Honestly, a daughter or a
or
son.
a grown or son,
You know?
I was gonna get into that too. Young, old, maybe like not quite 30. This is a good time to show them this story. Because believe it or not, it's a lot of people resonate with this story because they've been in it. Right? Or they've seen somebody be foolish in love and things happen and it goes left. And I think that this is a good reminder of, I can't say what I really want to say, but don't let a loser bring you down. Because this is really what it sounds like.
You know, we'll continue to follow it.
Allegedly.
I know you. You
Gotta use that word. Don't come suing
Keep
me.
us in the clear. I know that you will continue to follow it. It is honestly very sad on many levels, but we appreciate you staying on top of it. I know a lot of people have found you know, interest in it for many different reasons. So thank you for staying on top of it.
That's our job, right?
Yeah, it is.
That's why we collect that paycheck. So been my pleasure to follow it. So.
All right. Tia Ewing, everybody, and you'll see her at 4, 5, and 9 this evening when she wraps everything up. All right, it's 2:33. We'll be right back. 2:36, everyone. We are moving on with the broadcast today. Thank you for staying with us here on Chicago Live. Emily Wall's here now so that we can talk about the bitter cold temperatures that we are in today. Are we locked in?
We're locked in. So actually tonight it's going to be even colder than what we just had last night. So actual air temperatures tonight going to be dropping down to about 5 degrees below zero to 5 above. It really just depends on where you're at. Locations closer to the lakefront, of course, including the city of Chicago. We have that urban heat island that we get to rely on a little bit to keep those temperatures just a tad warmer. But our usual cold spots, so think the western third of the viewing area.
Aurora.
Places, yes, Aurora, DeKalb, Woodstock, LaSalle, very easily looking at temperatures that could be as low as about 5 degrees below zero, and there's still going to be 5 to 10 degree or 10 mile per hour winds on top of that. So that's going to send wind chill temperatures very easily down to about -15, maybe coming close to -20.
My.
So getting dangerously cold again tonight. But once we get through tonight and early tomorrow, we have another warming trend. So we're going to see winds coming in out of the south-southwest tomorrow.
You have to put quotations around warming.
Oh, I know. If you could only see it, here's my little air quotes. But yes, we are warming up, but still looking at well below average conditions because average, Anita, is right around 40. And we don't have that in the forecast anytime soon. We're likely looking at below average conditions all the way through at least the first half of this month. So the latest temperature outlooks from the Climate Prediction Center taking us out till about the 17th, 18th of December. And it's looking like overall we're staying below average. But this weekend, hey, we have a shot at the 30s going into your Saturday. A small chance of snow on Sunday. Same thing on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But you'll notice by Tuesday and Wednesday, we're digging out of that deep freeze.
I'm just looking at what's coming down from that cloud.
I know. Yeah, so that's a rain-snow mixture being possible, which with all the snow that we have out there right now, that really can make a mess. I don't know if you noticed out and about today, all of the slush that was previously
ice
melted because of, salt was effective at the warmer temperatures. Today, it's not so effective. So that slush is ice, and it's really unpleasant to walk on. It's difficult to walk on. So, that's why we were messaging so strongly yesterday. If you still have snow, ice removal, for folks that didn't take care of it yesterday, or maybe you couldn't, or you don't have the opportunity to, unfortunately, we're going to be stuck with that at least until Saturday. But, things will start to improve here over the coming days.
Yeah, there's a lot of signs outside of businesses today about that ice. No one wants to get caught with a lawsuit for somebody slipping and falling or for something coming off of their building.
Right.
And hitting them.
Signs are the ones that say, beware of falling ice.
Exactly.
No, thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, but what a gorgeous shot. At least we're seeing some sunshine. It's kind of the first time all week that we've had a decent amount of sun, so it looks pretty. It's just pretty cold out there.
Yeah, and you see the folks still coming out to the bean. I always say, there's a level of dedication. Like if you were here visiting, and look, there's one of those signs, right? Yep, right in the corner there. If you were here visiting and you said this is the picture you are going to get that says Chicago.
Yeah.
You bundle up and you just go get it.
Yeah, I've seen on social media several people who they must be tourists here, mentioning like, oh man, Chicagoans, they really go through it. And if you are watching right now and you're a tourist, yes, this is very cold, but this is much more typical for January or February. This is not typical for December.
But this is where the questions come in. And I know you can't do a 2-month forecast, but this is where the questions come in as to, wait, is this the setup? Like, oh, does this mean we're about to have an extra cold winter this year?
There's certainly, there's signs pointing toward a cooler than average winter. So we have what is called a La Nina that's set up in the Pacific Ocean, and that's something that can influence your weather pattern by kind of controlling systems and the jet streams and things like that. So it gives us an idea comparing similar setups to previous years and how they, shook out. So it does appear like we're in for a cooler than average winter with above average precipitation. So far, we're living up to it. We're only, what day is it? The 4th day of December.
Yeah.
We're 4 days into meteorological
and
winter.
Everyone's like, "Whoa!"
We're living up to it so far.
And I say everybody's like, some people love this stuff. Wait for it every year, get upset if we don't like it. And I always say there is an industry that profits from everything.
Well, and if you think about the last couple of years, Anita, it's actually been really mild.
It has.
For the winter. So for a lot of folks and businesses that actually rely on snow removal. Think landscaping companies, right? A lot of times they'll switch over to snow removal during the winter months. And last year, we only had 11.9 inches that fell the entire season at O'Hare.
It's a struggle for them.
And we're basically already there this year. So hopefully we're just kind of making up for lost time there for those folks that do want the snow. I'm kind of one of them, though. I am loving it. I'm enjoying it, especially because, you know, we've got all the holiday lights and it's stunning outside. Ask me in January.
There it is. Yeah, I think it fits into the holiday theme to have the snow. It is gorgeous when it's coming down if you don't have to drive in it.
Exactly.
But then it gets all gucky and nasty and brown on the side of the roads too. So
we're starting to get to that phase now. So we just need another fresh layer.
Oh, yeah, that'll fix everything for sure. Emily, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. 2:42, everybody. We'll be right back. I'm telling you, the moment we went to break, the SpaceX launch happened. So sorry about it, but you can see it's up in the air now. It's gorgeous even to look at it from this standpoint here. I mean, when we went to break and we were like, oh no, it took off. So this is the SpaceX launch of a batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites for their second generation high-speed, low Earth orbit internet satellite constellation here. Took off from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. And man, it's just awesome to see them be able to do these. Again, we thought we were going to get one yesterday. It got scrapped because of the weather, but today it actually happened. So we get the pleasure, really, of being able to watch this. All the science that went into it, behind it, and the mission success now happening as we speak. As that is happening here, we want to continue on with our conversations. We have had Jonathan Santiago with the Chicago Fire Department, who's been hanging with us for a minute now. So we don't want to take any more of his time waiting to talk with us, because we really appreciate him. He is the Public Education Division representative. Thank you so much for your time. I think it's so important that we talk to you while we have this cold weather outside.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we have seen several fires in the area over the last several days. And I want to talk about, first and foremost, the fact that obviously when the temperatures drop, people try a lot of different ways to heat their homes. And why don't you educate us on some of the ways that goes bad?
Yeah, some of the ways that go bad, especially with low economical status, we notice that a lot of families will tend to heat their homes with the oven, which causes kind of two issues. One, it's a fire hazard. And two, if the flame does go out, it does provide a carbon monoxide hazard as well, too.
Yeah, and of course that has its own issues. So there's the how often should people check their detectors? And many of the detectors are fire detectors, but also carbon monoxide detectors as well nowadays.
Yeah, our detector should be checked at least once a month, and I believe the state standard is going to be a 10-year lithium-ion battery in the device. So we should be making sure that we have those and not the battery-operated ones that are exchangeable.
Yeah, so that's not waiting until it beeps, but continuing to check it on a regular basis. You mentioned people, leaving the oven open maybe to heat the home. Even something as simple as a candle, or while we're in the month of December, it could be the tree. I know you all just did the demo of how a tree could end up, going up in flames.
Yeah, we want to make sure that if we do have an actual tree, that we're watering our tree on a regular basis. It can become a fire hazard. And of course, we want to make sure that our heaters are connected to our outlets directly, and that there is at least 3 feet of a radius around that heater to make sure that nothing is catches on fire from that heater.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so you have those things. A space heater, we see that each and every year as well.
Yeah, space heaters are actually one of the leading causes of fires, as long as like unattended candles. So we want to make sure that at least with our candles, there's at least 12 inches on a sturdy surface of clearance all the way around, so that nothing catches on fire as well.
Yeah. So, we spoke with a young lady a few days ago. There was a fire at her building. Give us some information in terms of what do you do if you're in a high rise and there is a fire in your building?
Yeah, so if there's a fire in your building, the first step is that you want to be able to exit the building if you feel safe as possible. Not everyone has the ability or is able-bodied. So if you're not able-bodied, get behind that stairwell fire door. Make sure you call 911 and let them know your location. We want to stay away from all the elevators. Don't break any windows. And if unfortunately, if you can't make it out, get access to your phone into a window so that we can spot you and know exactly where you are.
Mm-hmm. Are there things that you can or should do that buy you time, if you will, until someone can get to you?
Absolutely. We want to be able to make sure that we close our doors. And the most simplest way that we tell our children and our youth is that, a fire's hungry and it needs air and food to eat. So if we close our doors, it doesn't provide it that air and materials to continue to burn and what helps a fire thrive. So closing our doors is going to be one of the most important keys in fighting a fire and reducing that collateral damage.
Yeah. So the first, aspect of what I wanted to talk to you today about was, of course, how you all are protecting us, but then also how we can protect ourselves. The other aspect I wanted to talk about was when these temperatures dip, it does create a different challenge for firefighters when you're even going to go fight the fire.
Absolutely. We experienced lots of troubles, such as like frozen hydrants and things like that. But we have protocols designed to be able to ensure the public safety by sending extra engines and companies to extra fires. This way, so that resources may be limited due to the weather, but they're not limited due to manpower and staffing.
Yeah. And does it change how you all go about reporting to the fire?
No, we respond to the fire just as any other. The only difference is that we do send additional companies. We might send some warming buses and things like that of that nature if it is a high occupancy building, to make sure that people in that building are safe and warm and don't get any frostbite or any things along that nature.
Yeah. What should, if people are buying things to heat their homes, whether it's an electric blanket or candles or space heaters, what are some of the things that they should be looking for to make sure that they are protected? Or what are some of the red flags that say you need to get rid of this?
Yeah, so we want to make sure that our devices are completely intact, and we're not using extension cords to plug anything in and overwhelming our outlets. We also, another safe alternative for candles is the battery operated one. In addition to that, we with our heaters, we want to make sure that there is some type of fall prevention. So a lot of these devices that are coming out now, when they notice that the devices had tilted over or fallen over, they will completely shut off, which is a huge safety mechanism.
Yeah. And
Part of our recommendation.
how long, can you have a candle going or before it becomes an issue? Or how long can you have the space heater on? Or even the the electric blanket? Is there now, like I have like a heating pad that has its own timer, but if you don't have a timer on it to say like, okay, this is the time when it needs to cut off, about how long should these things be on before you just need to say like, hey, this could become an issue?
Absolutely. Our recommendation is just that if you're not in the room, the device should not be on, right? So if you tend to walk out of your bedroom and your space heater is in your bedroom, please make sure that you turn off your space heater and or blanket. This way it drastically reduces the risk of a fire hazard.
Yeah. So tell me about what you do in terms of educating people. Like what types of things are you all doing on a regular basis to make sure people know these things?
Absolutely. We reach out to all types of community centers, whether it be schools, block clubs, churches, any organization that reaches out to us. And we're teaching fire safety, and in addition to that, handing out free smoke detectors to families who can't afford them as well, to help reduce that fire fatality. Education is key to be able to help reduce those fatalities.
Mm-hmm. And what should people do if they're watching right now and maybe they need, the smoke detector, the carbon monoxide detector, or even, is there someone who can come by and like inspect those things? If maybe it's a senior who doesn't have, a child or someone young to be able to come by and inspect those things, what are the things that are offered for them?
Absolutely. We one of my favorite programs is our C-Sharp program, our Senior Citizens at Risk program. And we'll come out and install as many smoke detectors up to code to make sure that our senior citizens are safe, and also discuss potential fire hazards that are in their home so that they're not taken advantage of by private contractors.
We so appreciate what you do on a regular basis. Please give my regards to everyone there, and thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's about 2:54, everyone. Let's take a quick break. 2:56 right now, everybody. Thank you so much for staying with us. We're approaching our 3 o'clock hour. And, one of the things that we look forward to every single year when we announce the Salvation Army's annual Red Kettle campaign is finding out when they get a gold coin. And wouldn't you know it, they're starting to arrive. So Lieutenant Matthew Manley, who is the Chicago Temple Corps officer, is joining me now to talk a little bit more about it. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks you for having us on air with you guys.
Absolutely. We really do get tickled every time we find out about the gold coins. And when as soon as we announce that the Kettle campaign is starting, you're like, okay, when are we going to find out about any gold coins? And then when you do, you're like, oh my gosh, it happened again. So where did these coins appear?
Yeah, so we had some volunteers at the Daily Plaza at the Chris Kendall Market, and they actually appeared in not one but two kettles. We had one side had a 1 ounce gold coin, and then the other side had multiple gold coins. There were 3 1/4 ounce gold coins, and then 4 20 franc gold coins as well.
Let's assume no one has ever heard of the gold coins that go in these red kettles.
Yes.
What is the significance of them?
Well, they're right now gold prices are really high, and they're valued at around a little over $10,000 for all of those gold coins. So they're going to make a huge impact for our community.
$10,000. That is amazing. And talk about the importance of the campaign overall, because, obviously that's quite literally a drop in the bucket to where you're going.
Yes. Yes. So it's important. Our kettle season is really important because it helps us raise money to be able to help those in our community. And it's even more now than ever, it's really important because, more than 17% of Chicago households live below the poverty line. And then almost a quarter of Chicago children also live in poverty. And then you also add on to the government shutdown that we recently experienced that caused gaps in our food assistance programs. And we don't really know the full impact of that. But what we do know is that those people didn't have that immediate access to resources, and we've seen more people coming into our food pantry more than ever. And public financial support is incredibly important because of these things, and especially this time of year. And it's the best way to be able to help support those people in those communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's so beautiful to see that people want to step up in any way that they can, and especially in this significant way with these gold coins each and every year. Yes. Do we know who dropped the coins?
We do not. Nobody has came forward, but we're just really grateful for our volunteers that were at the kettles when it happened. We had a really great service club called Lucia Cares. That signed up to ring for us, and they signed up for a lot of hours. They've been manning the kettles there at the Chris Kendall Market. So, it's people like that coming out and being willing to help us and being joyful. It helps bring in more donors as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what is the goal for this year?
Our goal is $50,000 for our specific location at the Salvation Army Chicago Temple.
Mm-hmm. And then overall,
I'm not 100% sure what that number is. Each location has different numbers, anywhere from where ours is at 50,000, and then other locations have numbers at like 250,000 and even higher than that as well.
Yeah, and tell everybody how long you all will be out at various locations.
Yeah. So we'll be out until December 24th. And I apologize. I do remember the number now. Our Chicago Christmas goal this year is actually $12 million. We're shooting for $1 million from our red kettles, and then another $11 million from other donations. And the red kettle event will be going on until December 24th. But we're always looking for people to help support even past that.
Yeah, and the support can come in many different ways. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we can have people they volunteer by going to register to ring, and they can create an account there and volunteer to man a kettle to help us raise money. They can come into to our different locations and help volunteer through that as well. With we have Angel Tree going on where people sign up to receive toys, and people donate toys to the community as well through that. We definitely need people to help in our food pantries this year because of the impact that we're seeing this year as well with that. So.
How far does the dollar stretch? When we give $1 to you all, how far does that stretch for people who are in need?
And it stretches pretty far. That you'd be surprised at how many people that we're able to serve with that $1. Because we get donations of other things as well. That people donate food, so we're able to stretch it as much as possible when people are able to give to us.
Are there some other things going on right now or coming up that you'd like people to know about? Any events or anything like that are happening?
We're getting ready to have our Angel Tree program where people are be able to come in and pick up their toys that they signed up for. We're just a lot of different things going on with Christmas this year. So we're having our food distribution for our Christmas food distribution as well. That's coming up towards the end of the month. So those are our two big things that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, some people have said there you go from drive to overdrive at this time of year for the Salvation Army. If people don't know how the Red Kettle campaign came to be, give us a little history lesson before I let you go.
Yeah, so it actually started in San Francisco, where there was an officer that wanted to raise money to help feed people in the area, and he would go out there with an actual crab pot. Like a crab kettle type pot, and ask people to keep the water or to keep the food boiling, and ask people to give donations through that. And it was very successful when he did that, and it started to spread throughout all the United States. And it's a tradition that we've continued today, even almost 100 years later. So.
Well, it's wonderful to see. We hope it continues. Although if it didn't, that would mean that the need wouldn't exist. So thank you all for meeting the need where it is. And please continue to keep us updated.
Yeah, we will. Thank you for having us on.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate what you do. It's 3:04 right now, and we're going to take a quick break. Then we've got to talk about something a little strange going on. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. It's 3:06 right now. We have a lot to get to in this last hour with you here on Chicago Live. We're going to talk about anti-bullying. It's always important to have that conversation, but there's some new things that might help parents and guardians out there when you're dealing with your kids and the issues that they might have at school. We're going to check in with our team in New Orleans as they now have Operation Swamp Sweep that is taking place in their area, similar to Operation Midway Blitz, the immigration enforcement effort that from the Trump administration that was here in our area. They now have Operation Swamp Sweep there, and there have already been major protests as a result of it. We're going to bring in Cassie and her interview with the one and only DJ Moore, getting a great award, a very much deserved award this football season. And you just heard us, if you were with us moments ago, speaking with the Salvation Army about the great things that they are doing and the gold coins that are coming with their Red Cattle campaign. But we have something that's on the rise out there that we've got to talk about right now. It is cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. It is a condition that's sending more and more people to the hospital, to the ER room. And I want to bring in Antonia Nemanich with Rush Hospital. Dr. Antonia, did I say your last name correctly? If not, please correct me.
Nemanich, very close.
Nemanich, okay. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you being here. I was a little stumped hearing this for the first time.
It's definitely a confusing condition. It's something that unfortunately we not only see a lot of, but we see a lot of the same patients that keep coming back with the same symptoms. And that makes it frustrating for patients and healthcare providers alike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so social media has dubbed this condition scromiting. Why is it called scromiting?
So that is intended to describe the sound that these people are making, which is basically in between a scream and the normal vomiting sound. So it's a very dramatic vomiting sound.
Oof, it sounds painful. And so as I'm seeing, this is habitual cannabis users who are coming in with this condition. Why now?
It's not a new thing. I mean, those of us that work in the emergency department have actually been seeing this for years, but it is increasing. And I think it is getting more attention now, which is great. Because it is an important public health issue. And I think as there's more and more cannabis readily available and legal, and the potency of those cannabis products has been basically steadily increasing over the past decade plus, we are seeing more of it. It's one of those things that seems to be a dose-dependent phenomenon. Like a lot of things in toxicology, we say the dose makes the poison. And so the more potent something is and the more frequent someone is using it, the more likely they are to have these really unpleasant adverse effects.
Wow. Is it something that's affecting more demographically? Like, are we seeing more young people? More? Is there like an average type of like who other than like when I say chronic, well, I don't want to use the word chronic, but habitual cannabis users, is there some type of group that you're seeing more than anything?
It's definitely young people, and I would characterize the majority of the people that we see as between the ages of 18 and 30. We definitely see some on the older side. I personally haven't taken care of any elderly people with, we sometimes call it cyclic vomiting as well, but cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. It's typically a problem of young adults, sometimes even teenagers, which I think is becoming a little bit more common.
Yeah. And how concerning is this?
I think it's very concerning. I think it takes its toll on the patient population as well as the healthcare system. I mean, the symptoms themselves are, they're not deadly symptoms unless they were to be, severely untreated, for a long period of time. But they're very, these patients come in with a lot of anguish. It's very distressing to patients.
Wow.
And it's something that's a little difficult to treat. It doesn't always respond to the typical anti-nausea medicines that we'd like to use.
So what are the treatments then? Where do you end up going with this?
So we start out with sort of a standard algorithm for vomiting, giving people things like ondansetron or Zofran, which you may have heard of, and then pretty quickly escalating to things like droperidol or haloperidol. And those are actually medications that were developed as antipsychotics, but the way that they work in the body, they have a pretty dramatic effect sometimes on this specific syndrome of cannabis hyperemesis.
How would I know that this is scrommet versus like food poisoning or the flu?
Yeah, you definitely don't initially know that, especially if it's a patient that you haven't met before and that may not be forthcoming about the pattern of symptoms that they've been having. And while we, normally see this a lot with cannabis use, there is a syndrome called cyclic vomiting, which can happen regardless of substance use. But especially when patients are forthcoming about the cannabis use, it does really help to point us in a direction of how we can target the treatments a little bit more specifically.
Yeah. And would it happen if someone had like strong cannabis the first time, or does it have to like build up in your system?
What I've seen, it really is a phenomenon that happens with chronic heavy use. I think theoretically, someone could have a really severe vomiting reaction after their first use of cannabis, but we'd characterize that a little bit differently. We'd basically say that was a really significant adverse effect, but it wouldn't reach the syndromic nature of that, recurrent phenomenon where they're coming in multiple times with really difficult to treat symptoms. When people come in after a single use of strong cannabis or a cannabis overdose, they usually are much more easy to treat and they respond with sort of entry-level treatments for the most part.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what is maybe worst case scenario?
So I wouldn't characterize it as the worst case scenario, but one sort of unfortunate effect is that often we're not able to turn these patients around, get control of their symptoms in the emergency department, and we end up having to admit them to the hospital. And so often these patients are spending a really significant proportion of their life in the hospital with these really debilitating symptoms. And so I guess worst case scenario is that they never stop using the triggering substance and the symptoms never completely go away.
Wow. And so, yeah, is that a matter of, managing things better? I know, maybe somebody uses like a medical marijuana or something like that, but is it a matter of managing things better to prevent this, or do you just need to stop using cannabis?
The latter thing that you said, we really try to reinforce that with patients is that please do stop using, even be patient. Because one of the tricky things with this condition is that a lot of patients have latched on to the idea that the cannabis is actually the only thing that helps. And the real challenge that we have as the healthcare providers taking care of these patients is that getting them to make the link of, there's a lot of evidence behind the idea that the cannabis is actually the trigger. And unfortunately, with the chronic daily users, it can take quite a long time. It can take 2 to 3 months for all of that cannabis to get out of their system. And so they may stop use, for multiple days, even for multiple weeks, and then they continue to have occasional symptoms. And then they'll use that as basically a rationale that, it must not be the cannabis, and then they'll return to use. And so unfortunately, getting them to stop for long enough to really have the improvement be evident is challenging.
Yeah, what are some other misconceptions that you find for people who use cannabis on a regular basis?
I mean, I think that's the main one, that it has certain health benefits. It is used medicinally, but I think people will sometimes latch onto it as having benefits that it's been pretty clearly shown to not have in that specific individual. But because it's habit forming and they, rely on it to relax or to have other positive effects in that person, it can be really difficult for them to, find it in themselves to stop or to sort of seek help for that or recognize that it's a problem. We see a lot of people that use cannabis daily without these symptoms, but the challenge comes when they are clearly having these really tangible adverse effects, getting them to make that connection and ultimately stop using.
Yeah, and just maybe on a final note, you mentioned seeking help. What are some of the resources out there for people to, get to a better place?
Yeah, so we were talking a little about young people, and there is a clinic specifically dedicated to addiction medicine for youth at Lurie Children's Hospital. They treat patients, teenagers up to the age of 18. And then my colleagues and I at Rush University Medical Center do have a clinic dedicated to addiction medicine that's open to the general public. And cannabis use disorder is definitely one of the things that we treat.
Well, thank you so much for what you do to help people and for taking the time to enlighten us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. 3:16, everybody. Let's take a quick break. .318, everyone. Thanks so much for staying here with us. And, you know, a lot could be said about Chicago's traffic. A lot of those words wouldn't be too nice for most people. But this is really interesting. There is a new traffic study from INRIX that says Chicago has the second worst traffic in the world. No, not the country, the world. Bob Pishu is joining me now to break down their findings. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm not sure that anyone in Chicago would be shocked at you know, seeing us high on a list, but second in the world is a lot. So how did we get there?
Yeah, so again, yeah, don't be totally shocked by these rankings. You guys were there a couple of years ago too. You've just returned. But so what we did is we took a look at traffic in about 1,000 cities globally. So when you say the world, it may not be the entire world, but it is a sample of 1,000 cities, right? And Chicago topped the list. And that's mostly because New York didn't grow. Usually New York is above you guys, but this year New York stayed flat. And so you guys grew 10%. And so unfortunately you do have the title of, you know, the most congested city in the country.
Oh my goodness. And so, you know, what were the other ones maybe in the top 5?
Oh yeah, so I mean you got hold on, let me just look at this here. I can tell you. So Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Boston. So you have good company, right? Those are all very congested cities as well. I mean, and that's really what we're seeing across the country. The vast majority of cities saw increases, and you know, the good thing, I guess, to come out of this is this year's traffic patterns looked kind of similar to what we saw pre-COVID, right? I mean, it's much more, it's less erratic, it's less up and down. I think people have kind of established their commuting habits, you know. And so hopefully we won't see increases like this in the near future.
Very interesting. I mean, I think about like all that is said about, I mean, you mentioned New York, but even like Los Angeles's 405 freeway and how much gridlock is on that on a regular basis. And to think that we're higher than both of them is like, whoa, oh my goodness. Even though we know that it's bad in this area. So when you all put together a study like this, what is the point of doing it? I mean, clearly there's a shock value to it, but what is the point?
Yeah, the point is that it allows cities to compare themselves to each other, right? Normally you've got all these different boundaries, county, metro, state, and when we're looking in other countries, you can't really make a fair comparison, right? Because their road network is different and all of that. But through this, we're able to allow you to directly compare to what it's like commuting in some of these other cities. And even some cities on our list like have it, in some of their code and stuff that, we don't want to have one of our roads show up on INRIX's benchmark or, INRIX's worst corridor report or something. So it allows them to monitor and make sure that they're delivering, a decent transportation system to, their residents.
Did you see all of these cities, like the top 5, top 10, did you see all of them decline during the pandemic and now we're coming back to like pre-pandemic levels, or are we in new territory?
Nope, you're exactly right. So it is kind of two-pronged, right? For one, I just checked, the Federal Highway Administration's website, and it's showing Americans are doing record driving. So right now, we've traveled more miles on the road than we did in 2019. So we're already kind of beating those that pre-COVID thing. But all these cities fell, and I mean some more than others, though, right? We saw traffic really plummet in San Francisco and in DC, right? One's tech heavy, the other's government heavy. Anywhere where the industry was really, where kind of the metro area is based off of, one or two industries, we saw it fall really hard. New York fell, but it also sprung back really quickly. And so I think that's why with New York kind of not growing, at all in this scorecard, I think that's kind of a sign for some of these other cities like Chicago and Boston and others, is that we're going to kind of see a plateau a little bit. I think that those commuting habits have kind of been established now, so it should be kind of, it won't be easy here on out, but it won't be huge changes.
How do you define, how does INRIX, define hours lost in traffic? How are you calculating that, and what does it say for Chicago?
Well, so how we calculate it is you have, if you were to go to your destination at night, generally, it's like free flow traffic. So we measure it with free flow traffic. No, nothing slowing you down really, except, stoplights and those types of things. Versus how it actually is during rush hour. And that difference, right? You can travel 65 at night, but rush hour, you're traveling at 25. That difference of 40 is delay. And what it says for Chicago, I mean, I noticed a couple of things in Chicago's traffic patterns, right? The morning commutes, so you guys are up 10%, right? But there's a little bit of reprieve in the morning. So delays on kind of these routes that I was checking were actually a little bit easier in the morning. It's the evening peak that really, increased, and the duration of congestion was a little bit longer. So instead of like 3 hours, it was 4 hours. So those are, some things to deal with. But I think Chicago can deal with it. It's, a major city, and even, the DOT has reached out to me in the past, and we've had talks with them, and they're trying to find ways, and they're working toward trying to at least stop the rise in congestion and then go from there.
Yeah, and then how do you look at that as like a dollar value to the time that we're wasting essentially in traffic?
Yeah, so it's a little bit more than $2,000 per driver lost to congestion. It's $2,063. And what that kind of signifies, though, is that lost time is not time with friends. It's not time with your spouse or your kids or whoever, right? Your parents. Um, you're not working during that time, and so you're not as productive. All of that has a cost, and unfortunately, that is the cost of congestion, right? It's less time to do those things that we love to do, you know. And in addition, it affects, sorry, it affects freight travel. So our goods and services are more expensive the longer that trucks sit in traffic.
Yeah, and I think about even pollution as well. So when you are doing this survey, when you're looking at what kind of like technology are you using to come up with this information?
Yeah, so this technology comes from a bunch of different sources. The main source is anonymous GPS probe data. So like car data, floating car data is what it's called. Out of nav units, stuff like that. And then it's also things like trucking fleets and delivery fleets. Um, we often get data from those as well, anonymized, right, across the board. And then we also get data feeds from like city government, state government, um, and I can't, parking garages, loop detectors in the ground, camera feeds, kind of all of the above go into this, this pool of data that we're able to get some of these insights from.
Do you often find that the data that you pull together is then used for like advocacy for some solutions to traffic congestion or things like that?
Oh, absolutely. So, some of the things that, like, for example, it's used in a bunch of different ways. So, for example, like our data is being used as part of this pilot program in Portland, where it's delivery by cargo bike, right? When you get into that dense urban core, deliveries become a lot tougher. So it's being used for that purpose. It's used to see if a highway widening is a good idea, or if you should retime, traffic signals, because we noted that like when the city of Austin used our data to retime, traffic went down 10% on that corridor. So absolutely it goes to make trips better.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I don't know if we want to be first in the U.S. in this category, but it's at least good to know.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Take care. It's about 3:30, everybody. Let's take a quick break. Welcome back, everyone. 3:31 right now, and the fallout still continues from Operation Midway Blitz, as there are still legal battles that are proceeding, some that are still in various stages of the process, and a lot of questions that still remain about the effectiveness. Some praise, some criticism as well for it. And now many of the agents that were here have moved on to other areas. We've seen them in North Carolina. We have seen them now in Minneapolis. And we want to talk about Operation Swamp Sweep right now with Sarah Allegre. This is down in New Orleans. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, hi there, Anita. Thank you for having me. Yeah, this has been going on for the start of the week, but DHS announcing yesterday that they are officially launching what they're calling the Catahoula Crunch, essentially, aimed to be a nod at Louisiana culture. But as you said, as you guys experienced Midway Blitz, you've seen some criticism throughout your community, and we saw that more so today. Now, things were relatively quiet yesterday, at least on the protest side, but today there was a city council meeting here, and some protesters gathered outside council chambers a little bit earlier to kind of address their concerns. They want to hear more and they want to see more from local leadership when it comes to their response and their reaction to this federal operation. And we saw a quick change. So we were there a little bit earlier this morning. Protesters were outside, relatively calm. Things were peaceful. They just were sharing their message. And then it was once they went inside council chambers that we really saw things begin to change here. They were speaking at the podium, but their time was cut off essentially because they weren't matching the agenda item up for discussion with council. So council leaders, they turned their mics off, and that's when we started to see more of a reaction. These protesters, they started yelling, shame, shame on you. They started calling council members cowards, and then pretty soon we saw the New Orleans City Council essentially leave and walk out. Security tried to escort people outside the building. Many protesters chose to stay, and it ended with one person being carried out of council chambers earlier this morning. So we're starting to see more of that reaction between local leadership and the community members here who want Customs and Border Protection out. They want Border Patrol out, ICE agents, National Guard, and they are trying to get their message across to leadership here.
Yeah, has the Trump administration talked about like specific targets for that area? And I mention that because, of course, for like Minneapolis, they've specifically talked about the Somali immigrants who are in that area. Have they been that specific for New Orleans?
Well, their focus with this mission is more so targeting New Orleans and its sanctuary city policies, going after the criminals who were released from jail, now out on Louisiana streets. They want to send them back to their home country. That's what they're going after. They're in and outside of the New Orleans area. And then there's a particular neighborhood outside of the city. It's near the airport here called Kenner. We know a lot of action is being held in that direction, too. My colleague Mike Tobin went on a ride-along. He embedded with Border Patrol just yesterday. They didn't make a lot of arrests during that time, essentially because we're hearing a lot of people are taking the advice and looking at the lessons learned from places like Chicago, Charlotte as well. People have been laying low. As of yesterday, we did hear that a little over 20 arrests have been made. We can expect that number to have grown as we head toward the end of the week, but we're seeing more of this slow progression and hoping to get a better update from federal agents either later this evening or sometime tomorrow.
Yeah, and all of this, of course, is new for those of us who have been through it in our areas. It had a heavy economic impact, too, in areas that, like you said, if people are laying low, they're not shopping in boutiques. They're not going as much to the grocery store. They're not eating in restaurants as much. Are you seeing or speaking with some business owners who are talking about that aspect?
Anita, yes, I have. I spoke to some yesterday, and what we're seeing across a lot of these businesses is that sign that says no ICE access in this business, no ICE allowed, rather, in this business, in this office, etc. So that's what we're seeing really across the area. We know some restaurants, one Mexican restaurant in the New Orleans area, have closed their doors, at least temporarily, while this is unfolding. I talked to local business leaders in the community, too, and like you said, they are worried about the economic impact because a lot of these employees aren't showing up to work, and it's hurting business owners.
Mm-hmm. And you spoke of the sanctuary status. One of, I think, the most contentious and confusing, quite honestly, aspects of Operation Midway Blitz for a lot of people in our area had to do with the role of local law enforcement. Has NPD spoken out?
You know, I think the difference between here and Chicago is the local law enforcement cooperation. So we're seeing a lot more of that, this interagency connection, which could be why we haven't seen as many riots break out, protests per se, but we do know that there is a collaboration in that sense.
Very interesting. And then, again, we had an extended period of time that agents, I mean, some of them are still here, but when things were really ramped up in this area, has there been any indication as to how long these agents who have now deployed to New Orleans could be there?
Yeah, Gregory Bonvino, he is leading the charge here in New Orleans, and we asked him yesterday, when will this thing wrap up? He said once they complete this mission successfully, and he said getting criminals off the streets here of Louisiana, so no exact timeline yet. He just says once the job is done, then they'll leave.
Mm-hmm. And just on a final note, if you spoke with him, Commander Bovino, obviously, he even ended up in court several times here in Chicago. Are there any lessons learned on their part, things that they're doing differently as they go about after their previous experiences in other areas?
Yeah, in a vague sense, he did say that they're taking lessons learned from the past experiences, didn't go into it moving forward, but I think each operation is looking slightly different following what we saw over in Chicago with Operation Midway Blitz.
Mm-hmm. And numbers-wise, how many agents are there now?
It looks like a few hundred. We were told 250 when asking the Border Patrol chief yesterday, Bovino. He basically said that there are hundreds of federal agents on the ground here.
Okay. All right. Sarah, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be checking in with you as long as you're there.
Thank you.
All right. You take care. It's 3:38, everybody. We'll be right back. After, Welcome back, everyone. 3:42. We know we kind of have people coming and going, some that stay with us from the time we start at 1 o'clock. And if you were with us in our 1 o'clock hour, we took you to a press conference as the FBI has now identified a suspect from the pipe bomb case connected to January 6th. The man's name is Brian Cole. And now we're getting some live pictures here as investigators begin to search his home. Okay, so one of the things that Pam Bondi said during the press conference today was that America should feel safer today now that they have identified this suspect. He's just 30 years old. He's from Northern Virginia. There's a look at the home that they're going in and out of right now. Aerial pictures here as this is taking place. The pipe bombs were placed near the offices of both the Democratic and Republican national committees on the night before the riots at the Capitol. The explosives did not detonate, thank goodness, but still they needed to find who went through the effort to try to hurt so many people. A federal law enforcement official said that they located Cole by using evidence that they already had, not a new tip, even though it's taken them 4+ years to actually identify someone. They said they used cell phone data, some purchasing records, things of that nature, and that there was a special team of investigators that was brought in to help sift through all of the things that they were getting in and the things that they already had on them here. So essentially this evidence has been with them the entire time. Now, why they were finally able to bring charges now, not quite sure. But they're just trying to learn more about this man that they've identified. Again, he's from Woodbridge, Virginia. If you're familiar with that area, it is right outside of D.C. I've been to Woodbridge many a times. It's a very nice area, and it's in Prince William County. So according to the criminal complaint that was filed here, he resides there with his mother and some other family members. Again, he's 30 years old, resides there with his mother and several other family members. And according to some of the records, he has no criminal history, maybe a few traffic violations, but that's it before this pipe bomb incident, and he's going to be facing some hefty charges for this. He's charged with an explosive device. Pam Bondi today said that there could be more charges coming. And of course, these are federal charges now. But his credit card and checking accounts apparently all show that he purchased multiple items in 2019 and 2020, consistent with the components used to manufacture 2 pipe bombs placed at both the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention offices here. So they have a 7-page charging document that goes over all of the issues, all of the, the list of evidence and things that brought them to this day. And again, this man now 30 years old from Woodbridge, Virginia, which is Northern Virginia, just outside of D.C., now facing very serious charges as a result. And just looking at that aerial image, you can see how many federal agents are outside of his home. So when we saw the press conference earlier today, we saw Jeanine Pirro, who is the top prosecutor for the D.C. area. We saw, like I said, Pam Bondi, who was there. We also saw the head of the FBI, who was there, Kash Patel, who spoke on this as well. They have been searching for this person. The images have been out there. Most of us have seen the images over the years of this person, but just never knew who it was. And quite frankly, a lot of people, if you weren't on the case, you probably forgot or just, there's so many things that happen on a regular basis. You just weren't thinking about the fact we never actually found out who the person was in those images, going back to 2021. So here we are now, almost to 2026, and we finally have a name, and we finally have some movement in this particular case. So it's good to know that people have stayed on the case. Those federal agents have stayed on the case, now going through his home, looking for everything to put this case together so that it is airtight when it goes to court. Like I said, he is facing very serious charges here for what took place there as they are searching his home. It's not immediately known what they are taking out right now, and you can see their hands are full. Even as we're looking, their hands are full, so it's not known at this point in time what are the things that they've been able to take out today. We just know that they're there. We have this aerial image from our sister station in the area as they are conducting this search through, again, the 30-year-old suspect's home there in Woodbridge, Virginia. Brian Cole now, who is charged with putting those pipe bombs underneath the RNC and the DNC headquarters in D.C. ahead of the January 6th riots that took place. It's just, wow. It's a big development, and we'll see where things go from here. It's 3:48 though right now. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. $3:50 right now. We're getting close to the end of the show, everybody. But before we do, one of the topics that comes up over and over again for schools is bullying. And it's good to see that we have people who are trying to figure out new ways, creative ways to try to come up with a solution, to try to help kids out and try to help parents out who are trying to navigate these waters, especially in such an age as this, where a lot of it goes beyond what happens in a school to cyberbullying that can be pervasive in a child's life and feel like they can't get away from it at any point in time. So a man named Shagman Lowry is joining me now. He says that he has a game-changing resource that he has developed now. It's a web-based school safety app. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So tell me the name of the app and what it's aimed to do.
Okay, so the app is called My Pal Schools, and it's an app that helps children combat situations of bullying, cyberbullying, personal crisis, fighting school threats. And combined with that, I created a professional development called invisible bullying. And that's where I come out and I talk at the different schools about, how do we get to this point of the bullying, and how do we deal with the cyberbullying, and how do we create some kind of empathy that'll make a difference and make people take a different look at it when it comes to bullying as far as children are concerned.
Teaching kids about empathy is so key. When did you come out with this and why?
Okay, so in 2019, I was working at the school district and had a situation where a young man brought a firearms to the school, trying to take matters into his own hands because he was being bullied. And he showed the firearm to another student. And, it was a situation where the kid was walking around the school for 2.5 hours with a loaded firearm. Well, he didn't have it on his person, but he put it in the locker. And the way the situation just got dealt with, 2.5 hours in a school that you work at, with your children at, and a loaded firearm is not a good look. So in a teachers union meeting, the lady suggested, well, hey, since you're, a coding teacher, why don't you go ahead and create a school safety app? So I went ahead and created a school safety app. I reached out to different people, and when you do stuff like that, a lot of people don't listen to you, but after 171 no's, I took it upon myself and I created it, and I got some advice from different administrators, and I created it and I covered the areas, like I said, bullying, cyberbullying, personal crisis, fighting, and school threats. And now the school safety app is in 183 schools across 7 states.
It really is amazing that you took the initiative and that it's grown like this. And even in the example that you gave, someone who has been bullied can then turn into the perpetrator for violence that takes place. Something may have been done to them initially, but then, other things, people can end up traumatized from what they end up doing. So tell me what you're hearing from those who have taken on this app. You say over 180 schools now that are using it. Tell me the reaction that you're getting.
Well, so the reaction, they love the app, and they love it because it gives students a voice. It gives the parents a voice. It gives the school staff a voice, because sometimes parents could be listening to their kids in the background and hear them talking about a situation. They can report a situation. Or the custodian. The custodian is the gatekeeper of most schools. He hears everything. He sees everything. So he can report a situation of it, and they can go ahead and let the school know, hey, we have a situation going on here, and I think we need to take some precautions when it comes to it. And on top of that, I kind of did it backwards. I made the invisible bullying second and the school My Pal app first. But with the invisible bullying, that's when I get a chance to come out to the schools and talk to the kids about this bullying and how it's not cool. And I give a prime example. A lot of times I come out to the school and a kid might say, well, I ain't gonna use that app. That's the snitch app. And I say, I'm glad you said that. I might say, what kind of phone do you have? Well, I got an iPhone 17. And I say, well, let me ask you this. If that iPhone 17 is sitting on a desk and somebody snatches that phone and I saw who snatched it, what you gonna ask me? And he said, well, I'm gonna ask you who took the phone. And I said, I'm gonna tell you I ain't no snitch. So now, when you think about that concept, that's how we get back to the empathy. Well, it's cool when it happens to somebody else. It's not cool when it happens to you. And that's how I break the students and the kids down and get them to look at it from a different lens.
Yeah, I love it. And that's why you have received the Chicago Bears Classroom Legend Award. I see,
yes,
for how you connect with youth. That matters. So as you're doing this, where do you see this going? How do you make it continue to grow?
Well, I come out to different schools and I reach out to people. I email them and I come out and I drop them flyers and brochures out and tell them, hey, listen, I have a resource that can make a difference to help you with your school and whether to get the school safety app. If I just come out and talk about the invisible bullying side of things and get them to understand that the bullying is terrible, the cyberbullying is even worse, because that's a situation where you have a bully with no face. And that's a snowball effect. Well, one person gets a like, then he gets 10 likes off of bullying somebody else. That's feeding the dopamine or the reward sensor in that person. And we don't know how the person being bullied is affected, because a lot of times people keep that stuff in. And with children, the triggers don't show immediately. Like adults, if they're having a situation, it's instant. But kids, it takes time. So across that pandemic, we talk about how much time children were stuck in the house by themselves. And now we're starting to see the effects of it in the years of 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, all the traumas those kids have experienced without letting their voice being heard.
Is there a fee for this, and how do people navigate it? If you download it, how do you navigate it?
So with the schools, here's how we do it. I'll come out to the schools and I'll set up a pipeline for them. So now the situation is strictly for the schools, because when the kids report the situations of bullying, it goes to that specific school's administrators. With the invisible bullying, when I come out, a school might say, hey, look, we're having this situation or this situation, and they might have it where I come out and talk to a group of students. I'll come out and talk to the group of staff. I'll come out and talk to a group of parents in different sessions, and then we have a combined session, a community engagement event where we have food, we have different resources, and we talk about this as a whole, where we have questions and answers. And I ask the students, hey, what resources do you think will help kids when they're being bullied? And I ask the kids that, and a lot of times, a lot of kids like to be judged by their own peers. So when I come out to the different schools, I ask them, how do you want to architect this for your specific school's needs?
Shagman, thank you so much for what you've done in creating this app. I hope it continues to blow up because it's needed. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us a little bit about it. And please keep us updated.
Okay, thank you, my dear.
All right.
Really appreciate it.
Take care. Take care.
Right.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think it's wonderful that we end on the note of someone being the change that we wish we would see when we see issues out in the community, figuring out a way in our own lane to be a part of the solution. So great chatting with him. We have talked about a lot of different issues today, but then also some bright spots as well. And so I'm glad to be able to end on one. We hope that you'll be right back here with us tomorrow for another day of Chicago Live. Remember, we're here from 1 to 4 each weekday, so I will see you again tomorrow, and we're already lining up things as we speak.
From Chicago, this is Fox 32 News at 4.
And right now, we're for a woman out charged with murder.